Towson. Long stretch of time last week, and that was just the beer drinking part, and the partying, and the working, and the radioing, and the communicating. He is Chris Pica, longtime WNST contributor. He's also the communications director of the Bahamas Bowl, as well as at the PFWA Writers. And there were writers, there was Hall of Fames, there was security, there was Radio Row. And then in the end, Chris, a lot of times these Super Bowls used to disappoint. This one certainly, they sold you the whole seat, but you only needed the edge there in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, and I think most of us probably, started to watch the halftime show with Lady Gaga thinking this game is long gone. That we were in for, just a long sort of second half, and with the Falcons being crowned champions after the way they played the first 30 minutes, but sometimes football has a funny way of evening things out, and I think we got I wouldn't say a game for the ages, but I think we got a fourth quarter and an overtime for the ages. I don't know if people will remember the first 45 minutes, but I think they'll certainly remember the last 15 in regulation and the one drive that won it for New England in overtime.
Well, I've been talking about this all week. Of all the things we've talked about with Brady, and I've been on the radio for all of it. I mean, I began my national syndication, when he took over for Bledsoe. That's how long ago it's been now, 17 years. And I think we've talked about, winning games and drives and the professionalism and the diet and, the longevity and his wife and the cheating and the balls and, all of that stuff. The one thing we never talked about was, can he come back from 25 points down in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl? The answer to that now is yes. And, of all the things we were not expecting to see during last week in any of the pregame was, they'll be down 3.5 touchdowns, and then we'll see what they can do at that point. I don't think anyone expected anything like this, and I don't think we'll ever see a performance like we saw on Sunday. And look, you live down in Atlanta. I mean, you had to fly back there with those folks. I flew back north and east with nothing but Patriots fans. I think everybody's in a little bit of a state of shock.
Yeah, I think you could see on the faces of the players in the bench area. I think New England, this isn't normal territory for them. The previous largest comeback they've had, the Brady-Belichick era in New England, was 24 points. Certainly football's a game. If you get a couple of breaks and some 3-and-outs, you get a chance that you can erase a 10 or 17-point deficit. It happens, with regularity in the league. But when you're talking about, over 3 touchdowns to come back from, and if you're on the Atlanta sideline, you've got to be thinking, hey, all we got to do is take care of the football, run the clock, shorten the game, and don't give Brady enough opportunities to start coming back. But you started to sort of see the momentum shift early in the fourth quarter, and you began to think, boy, Atlanta's going to need to do something on a drive here just to stop the momentum and keep them in control of the game. And they had so many opportunities to do it. That's the basic thing. I mean, they had to make New England almost had to be perfect, not the best word, but they had to have almost everything go right for them in the fourth quarter to come back, and they got every part of it right, and that just doesn't happen. I mean, the game sometimes doesn't give you opportunities like that. They took advantage of every single opportunity that they had on offense, and they took care of the business on the defense. And the Atlanta offense, which was so high-powered the first half, just suddenly lost their way in the last 30 minutes. And I debated with someone whether it was the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history or the greatest choke in Super Bowl history. And when you start to look at that game again on replay and whatever, it's more about New England making plays, Brady finding his receivers. They were just a tad off in the first half. Everything they made, I hate saying the halftime adjustments, but Brady made adjustments. His receivers started catching balls, and they became the Patriots that the Patriots team that we're used to seeing, and they had a few things go their way that helped them in the comeback.
You know what? You said something about shortening the game, and I keep going back to that. And Baldinger and I talked about this earlier in the week. There were many plays late in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter where Matt Ryan was snapping the ball with 12, 14, 16 seconds left on the play clock and a live clock. Like, I I mean, you are dancing with the devil in the Super Bowl. That's Tom Brady over there. That's Bill Belichick over there. You don't give them 3 extra seconds, 5 extra seconds, 8 extra seconds. When you do that on those plays, you then realize at the end of the game, they will take 50 seconds and they will turn that into 8 plays because they know how to do that. They're good at that. And shame on the Atlanta Falcons. Shame on Kyle Shanahan. Shame on Matt Ryan. Shame on all of them. I mean, you can praise the Patriots all you want, and I remember the Oilers-Bills game like it was yesterday. You don't open the door to that other team. You don't leave the door cracked when it's 28-3. It was an embarrassment, and they're going to have to live a long, long time with that. And I don't know how the Falcons rebound. I mean, they've already fired the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator's already left. I think that's a real tough offseason going on down there for Dan Quinn.
Well, it's you understand, and you've been around the Super Bowls enough as have I. It's very, very difficult. The losing team will always say almost to a man, we'll get back here and we'll get another shot at it. And the reality is it probably won't happen. The last team that lost the Super Bowl came back the following season and won. You'd have to go back to the Dolphins in Super Bowl VI when they lost, Super Bowl VII when they won. And that's a long time ago. Now, again, it's like a 25-point comeback.
Well, the Bills kept getting there, which is the amazing thing, right? The Bills kept coming back and kept losing. We'll never see that again. You look at what happened to Carolina. You look at, the San Francisco 49ers, 4 plays from the 1-yard line to win a ring, and now look at where Jim Harbaugh and Colin Kaepernick and all the rest of those guys, how they scattered and how that franchise is in disarray.
Well, I also look at Carolina last year, who you mentioned. It's a team that, had an incredible year in the regular season. They get to the playoffs, they get to the Super Bowl, and they don't get it done. And then this year, it falls apart for them. And the dynamics change. The work ethic changes. Coaches change. You have changes in players and free agency. Nothing is ever the same for teams, and even for Denver this year. Nothing is ever the same as what you had the year you're there. I like to tell this story because I think it illustrates a lot of what I say. The last time the Super Bowl was in Houston, I was assigned to Carolina and Jake Delhomme, who was our backup quarterback in New Orleans.
And a young Steve Smith was there, right?
Yes. Yep. And they had a very, very good opportunity to win that game. And unfortunately, they kicked a kickoff out of bounds after they got the lead touchdown. Of course, Brady goes back on one of his patented drives down the field, much like we saw in Super Bowl 51. And Vinatieri kicks the field goal at the end of regulation and game over, and they take it away from him. And I go back in the locker room to get Jake to take him down to the post-game interview area. And Jake just looks at me with just tears in his eyes, and he goes, I didn't do enough. And Jake had a great game. Might have been the MVP of that game had they won. And you watch the guys in the tunnel coming off the field. They all turned around to watch the celebration as they were coming off. And I heard a couple of players say, we're good enough. We'll be back here again. And the Panthers, until last year's Super Bowl, never got back to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's what we talk about. You get one shot at this, okay? New England took advantage. They've got the trophy and the rings. Atlanta is left with what could have been, and you're right, and I've said this Sunday night. There's no way to predict the reverberations of losing a game like that on an organization long term.
And it's not losing on a long field goal. You blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. I mean, if you go back and break the tape down of the last 18, 20 minutes of that game, I can't think the Falcons think they did anything right. I mean, one decision anywhere, and certainly the strip sack of Ryan, I'll even excuse that. I really will. That's an act of, it was a great play by New England. It was a missed block by, I'll excuse that. But taking that sack, when you're down on the 22-yard line, and why are you throwing? Why are you not running? Why are you not bleeding the clock? Why are you not kicking the field goal that would take you up 11 points with 2.5 minutes left to go in the Super Boy, I mean, I hate to use the term piss down their leg, but I mean, the further away I get from it, and I haven't watched a replay, I haven't watched, a cut up of play by play and scheme by scheme. And I do know Brady made everything happen in the last quarter and a half, and every pass was crisp and perfect. But the culpability to me is totally on the Falcons and not on 99 plays and not on their defense being gassed. To me, it's on the offense. To me, it's on the coaching. To me, it's just on the overall strategy. What are we trying to do here,
Well, I look at it this way. In every Super Bowl, in every major game, and I'll even put the conference championship games in that category, sometimes the moment becomes bigger than you are, okay? And sometimes you get overwhelmed by that occurring.
Well, then you lose, right? Then you lose when that happens.
Right. And so New England has been a part of so many of those big games. If you watch the replay, and we did very late Sunday night after we got done, New England never panicked during the entire stretch. They never had a period of play where Brady looked panicked in the pocket or they were racing to the line. Everything was done as if they'd been there before, and they've had been several times.
Hey, and I'll tell you what, one thing they did was kick that field goal at 28-9. There are a lot of bravado, a lot of Rex Ryans out there. A lot of Cowboys would have said, I ain't kicking no field goal down 19 points. What the hell good's 3 points do to me? I'm still down by 16. I still have to score twice and have 2-point conversion. We're going to go for we got to get in. 4th down, let's go for it. Hell with that field goal. I can hear half the coaches in the league down 28-9 wouldn't take 3 points there. I mean, and that's the way Vegas would tell you to play, right? They'd say, well, play the 3 points, get back to 2 scores, worry about the 2-point conversion after the next touchdown, worry about all that later, but get yourself to 16 points and get yourself situated to at least have a chance and that belief. And they kicked a field goal. I don't know that most of the coaches in the league would have kicked a field goal there.
I don't know either. And then, like I said, you also got to remember, too, not only do they have to score twice, but you have to do something incredibly difficult and get a pair of 2-point conversions because you've been chasing the point for the better part of the second half on a missed extra point. I mean, it's incredible how much they had go right. And you go back to the one play I thought, okay, the Falcons are going to win, which was the toe tap catch by Julio Jones, which was a great play. And now it's relegated to the dustbin of history because they don't win the football game. It's right up there with the juggling catch that Seattle had.
I went back on my Twitter feed the day after, and I saw my tweet was, that's the kind of catch that wins Super Bowls, Julio Jones. And it didn't.
I think many of us thought, everybody thought when that happened, we're going, they're out of the woods. They're going to kick the field goal. This game is over.
They're going to survive this. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, they're going to survive it. They're not necessarily going to win the game. They're going to survive having the moment be bigger than them.
Like the Ravens did, right? I mean, the Ravens literally survived in 14, right?
I think that's a fair assessment. And it doesn't matter how you get home. It's just get there at the end of the game. And honestly, I think going into OT, the only thing I thought was, okay, if Atlanta wins the toss, I don't know if they're going to score a touchdown, but I think they're good enough offensively. They'll get a field goal and extend the game. When the flip went New England's way, and you looked, and I looked at the stats at the start of overtime, where they doubled the amount of plays, the defense is gassed. This game's over. I said there's no possible way that Atlanta's going to be able to hold off New England, who now smells blood after what they did in the fourth quarter. The only momentum stop would have been Atlanta winning the toss in OT. It didn't go their way, and that's. So now they're packing up boxes, and New England got to go in the duck boats, and that's the difference between winning and losing in the NFL. It's a very razor thin margin, and I got to imagine that not only the head coach but the owner is going to look back at the game tape and just be absolutely sickened by what occurred. And the guy who was responsible for most of it has now gone off to San Francisco, and the head coach is left to explain what happened.
He is Chris Pica. He is Blog and Tackle out on Twitter, and our longtime WNST contributor, as well as the communications director for the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl, as well as the Pro Football Writers Association. Over the week, and we spent a lot of time together last week, and you did a whole bunch of radio with us early in the week, and then it starts to drift away. You have the Hall of Fame vote. You got honors now. I wonder, and this year, and I know you've been a part of it for well over a decade, going on 2 decades now, the amount of security, the amount of detail. Obviously the presidential situation here and the unrest in our society in general brought all of that on. I wonder for Minneapolis and moving forward, is there anything the NFL hasn't figured out how to do in this thing? I mean, even dropping Lady Gaga from the ceiling, I'm wondering how they could make this thing bigger than they've made it at this point, and certainly grander than it is.
Well, I think they try to make adjustments to the week and make it fresh, and the biggest addition here in recent years has been NFL honors, because it gives them an opportunity, and I will, it's a little bit of a sore point with my group at the Pro Football Writers, because basically the AP gives out their awards at this thing. It's not the official NFL awards. AP is just giving their award. They've done the marketing deal. So everybody thinks that's the official winners of the awards, when in fact the NFL recognizes several different writers groups, and it's all in their records and whatnot. But anyway, to digress, the NFL did a very smart thing in basically creating an awards show back in Indianapolis. Was the first year that it happened. And it's turned into a nice little 2-hour window of programming on tape delay for the East Coast. And they got an opportunity. And the biggest thing that they moved into it that people were honestly really interested in, more so than the AP Awards, is the Hall of Fame class. And that used to be a separate press conference earlier in the day. And now that's become part of honors that night. And I think that's one of the nicer things that they do. But they try to keep the week fresh in different ways. The commissioner was moved from Friday to Wednesday. You've had later media availabilities because of practice schedules and the like. So they're always looking at ways to adjust, and they're also, they're already, I know their NFL staffers are going to be in Minneapolis this coming week for meetings. They're already talking to the Atlanta folks about in 2 years what needs to be done. So there's a lot of advanced planning that goes into these major events. Everything you see from the media center to how the stadium's laid out, timing schedules, all of it. It's an amazing operation when you really dig down into the details and the logistics of it, and it's why it's become the preeminent one-day sporting event in the world.
In the case of the Patriots winning this, and I've asked this of everyone this week because I think it's kind of an easy, hot take, if you will. But with the Patriots, their greatness and Belichick and Brady, is that good for the NFL as you see it? I mean, if you could lay it out, if Pete Rozelle would come back, would he say the 10,000-pound gorilla is good for the game or bad for the game? I think that's an interesting debate.
I think it's good for the game in the sense that I think you want to see excellence, sustained excellence. I don't think, and I honestly would have to go back and think about this, but when the 49ers were in their heyday and they were winning championships, were people looking at them as, the same way they look at the Patriots now. Of course,
but they weren't so disliked. They weren't known for cheating. Right. They weren't known for an absolutely joyless, soulless coach. There's a different level of disdain, I think, for the Patriots. Maybe even more so than the Yankees or, disliking Michael Jordan or Rodman or Pippen because of their histrionics. I mean, this is one of the first groups that's really been, known for cheating. I mean, they will always be known for cheating.
Well, as I've argued many times, every NFL team walks up to the line and they look over. And if you don't think your local team, of course, the Ravens have had their own issues with practicing in pads and things like that. Teams will always look for an edge, and they'll always look over into the abyss. And how close can you get, and what the loopholes are, and everything like that. It's sports. That's at every sport, every level. You're going to have that. And of course, they got caught into very high-profile situations. And it's hard to say because I look at them, and you're right. I think they are somebody that they move the needle. And there's no real middle ground on New England. You either really, really like them because they are a very good football team across the board, or you hate them for the success, or you hate them because of Spygate or Deflategate, whatever that is. Okay, so they move the needle, and when you move the needle like that, positively or negatively, that brings ratings, right? What was that book by Eric Bischoff, the wrestling guy, years ago? Controversy creates cash. New England creates cash for the NFL because when they're on TV, they get eyeballs.
If it was the Kansas
City
City Chiefs against the Falcons,
right.
We wouldn't have a bad guy, right?
Right. Sometimes you have to have a black hat in a Super Bowl. You have, it's an interesting dichotomy. I mean, last year's Super Bowl was Peyton Manning's a white hat, and maybe people were not really sure about Cam Newton. Of course, after the game, I think he had the black hat after the game with how he acted. But I think it's good sometimes to have the good versus evil in a championship game, because then people want to watch, because they either want to see New England be more successful or they want to be rooting for the team that beats them. But regardless, that sells a lot of TVs, that sells a lot of whatever it is at $1 million a minute that Fox is getting, or multi-million dollars a minute. But it drives traffic, it drives eyeballs, it drives people to buy merchandise. So I think it's good for the game, because you're either going to very much root for them, or you're going to want to be there to watch them get knocked off. And the Giants doing it twice were great games with great ratings. So I think it's good for the game. I mean, I wouldn't want them to see them win 4 in a row, but having them always in that mix means people are going to want to watch, because now, and this comeback in the Super Bowl is going to add to their lore. If they are ever down by 14 or 17, well, they've been here before. Can they do it again? They move the needle.
He is Chris Pica, Blog and Tackle Out on Twitter, as well as one of our WNST contributors. Last question for you, Pica. What are you going to do with the Brady jersey you picked up in the locker room after the game?
I'll tell you what. Hey, that takes a lot of to even think about doing that in the locker room and post game. Okay. I mean, and you've.
And what are you going to do with it when you have it? I mean, you're not getting $500,000 on the market for it. You're not.
No, you are. You're
going to put it in your basement like a pelt on the wall, I guess. I mean, I don't even know what would identify it as the actual jersey. I know they mark those things. We had David Hunt on last week as well, but I don't think that thing will ever appear, right? Like it'll just.
Well, someone said what they need to do is contact the lawyer once there's a reward, and somehow manage to get the jersey returned and maybe get a reward for it, and everybody just kind of walks away from that happening. And I'm sure that the NFL and the uniform makers have some sort of way of identifying the jersey.
Location chip.
Yes.
My cat has a location chip in her. I guess they could put a location chip in that, right?
Yeah, they probably could, but there's probably something in it. I'm sure there's some things that uniquely identify it from a Brady jersey that you could buy in a store or an NFL shop for $250. There are certain marks that even like in the jerseys that I've seen with the Saints, not to that extent, but there are certain taggings and markings on the inside of the jersey you don't see on TV that would identify it as the jersey.
Does it say I was losing 28-3 in the third quarter on it?
It might. I mean, think about it this way: if New England never doesn't win another Super Bowl under Brady, and let's say that's their last time around to win that, the fact that's his last championship, the fact that they came back from 25 down, that jersey that's a 6-figure jersey. That jersey may be worth $500,000 in auction. I mean, that's a lot of money. That is a historically important piece. It
was the greatest game he ever played, right? It's the greatest game the greatest player has ever played, and we talked about this all last week. This is the thing that makes the Brady thing even crazier, is that this is the one thing he didn't do, right? And, Chris, last week when I was all gussied up, and I've told a couple people this week, on Friday when I was looking sharp doing my NFL top 10, one of the shows this year is top 10 Tom Brady performances. And I find it fascinating that on the Friday before this game, I argued for the Tuck rule. The Tuck rule was number 2 on the list, and I think Super Bowl 36 was number 1. And I said, the Tuck rule is the most famous game, right? Like if I were going to have a Tom Brady jersey from a game, I would think the one from the snow game that became this rule, that they changed, that, and it was kind of the thing that put Brady on the map. It's the oldest of the significant jerseys, right? So I said that the tuck rule was the most famous Brady game, even though it wasn't obviously one of the 4 previous Super Bowl wins. And a couple of those wins really came off the foot of the kicker, right? I mean, as you remembered, a couple of the losses, came off of Tyree and Manning, for crying out loud. I would say that this one, when you consider all the things that he's done, this is by far the signature. So all the talking we've done about Tom Brady for 17 years, saying what hasn't he done? Well, he hasn't played his best game yet, and he did on Sunday.
Yeah, I think I certainly think that in that he's had great performances, and their first half his first half wasn't that great. I mean, he was overthrowing receivers where some of the receivers weren't making the catches. And that's why I said it's probably not the greatest Super Bowl ever played. I don't think it comes close. But that final 30 minutes was a masterclass in quarterbacking, modern day quarterbacking. And quarterbacking isn't just throwing the football. Quarterbacking to me is your presence in the huddle, how you call plays, how you recognize defenses and making adjustments at the line. All the things that Peyton Manning did so incredibly well for so many years. He could just look out the defense and pick out the right guy.
Well, just having a quarterback that believes you're going to win when you're down 28-3, and you having the belief that this guy can do it. I don't think Alex Smith can get in the huddle and believe that they're going to come back from that. I think Joe Flacco can, because I think he has. Maybe not with his group of players, but when you pull off what Flacco did in Denver, you know what I mean? When you've done those things, you at least have the belief that you can do that. I don't think a lot of quarterbacks in the league could have any belief in the huddle down 28-3 that, we're going to go get them, right? Yeah, sure you are.
Here's the difference. The quarterback being a quarterback has a certain amount of ego. They always believe they can. The difference with the Patriots in Super Bowl 51 was the other 10 guys in the huddle looked at him and they believed it too. You quarterbacks will always believe they can get it done, but the other 10 guys in the huddle better be on the same page with you. And I'm sure that the other 10 Patriots in that huddle, from linemen to the receivers, the backs, all looked at him. And when Brady said, this is where we start, and you start in small bites, okay, get the field goal here. You're down 16, okay. You can't get 16 points back in one possession. Let's worry about getting 8. Let's worry about getting the touchdown to 6. Then we worry about the 2-point conversion. And they did an incredible job of compartmentalizing their situation and never, ever panic. Even when they had that long 6-minute drive where everybody's going, God, they chewed up a ton of clock. And they're, and now the Falcons can go out there and they can run the clock and basically just, not give them much left to do anything else with. And it turned out that wasn't the case. They had a couple of injury timeouts. Just everything went their way. But the other 10 guys in the huddle are looking at Tom Brady going, we can get this done. And they honestly believe it. And so the closer they got, the more that they really, believed, and the defense bought in and made some great plays and gave them an opportunity. But that's, there's some people say, is Brady the greatest of all time? I'd say in the Super Bowl era, he's probably the greatest of all time, but every generation has had their greatest quarterback. In the 1950s, Otto Graham won a ton of championships. I think 7 of them between two different leagues. Was an incredible quarterback. Unitas was the quarterback of the 60s. Every generation has their guy. And Brady, at least in the Super Bowl era since 1966, has been the greatest quarterback, at least in the Super Bowl, has been the greatest quarterback. In this generation, him and Manning are 1 and 1A.
He is Chris Pica. He is Blog and Tackle out on Twitter. We are recapping all things Super Bowl 51. We'll be there for Super Bowl 52. Ray Lewis going into the Hall of Fame next year. We'll be freezing our asses off in Minnesota. But I'm sure it'll be some sort of tribute to Prince, and it'll be all purple. And who knows? Maybe the Ravens will be there. Chris, always great checking in with you, man. I don't know how Atlanta's going to respond to this. I know you live down there in Flowery Branch. Must be a little bit of a pall cast upon the town, correct?
Yeah, I think people are still kind of wondering exactly what happened. I mean, I can't even imagine having. Let's say you're in a bar in Atlanta and you're a longtime Falcons fan, and you're suffered with them for a lot of years. and the embarrassing performance they had in the previous Super Bowl, and how hard it's been for them to get back here in recent years. Even to go deep into the playoffs, they had that collapse against San Francisco the year they played the Ravens in the Super Bowl. So imagine being in an Atlanta bar with your Falcons jersey on, and you're up big in the third quarter. And then an hour and a half later, you're going home, and you're just like, what the heck happened?
At our Super Bowl, I was congratulating friends of mine. You know, my pal Jason Pappas was sitting in my section, and we were talking when the lights went out in New Orleans. You know, we're like, wow, I wonder if the parade's Tuesday or Wednesday. There was no way the Ravens were going to lose that game at that point until, well, they were on their heels at the 1 yard line. And certainly, you know, the first thing I thought pulling out of that parking lot in Houston on Sunday night was I thought, man, that could have been us. Yeah, that easily could have been us in New Orleans.
Yeah, and that's another game with a momentum shift that gave another team life, and they started making plays. And you know, I mean, listen, let's give Atlanta credit. They played very well for over a half. They did what we thought they were going to do and score points. New England's defense looked very weak against them. Matt Ryan didn't have to throw the ball a lot. They had a great running game with Devonta Freeman, was getting a ton of yards. They were very efficient on offense, probably too efficient when you start looking at the amount of plays. I think late in the fourth quarter it was like 2-1. It was like 76-35 or something like that in plays run. So they were very, very efficient in the plays that they had to score. The problem was they were just leaving New England way too much time. And like I said, it may not be the greatest Super Bowl ever played, but it will go down as one of the 2 or 3 most memorable for what we saw over the final 2 hours of real time and a quarter plus an overtime on the clock.
All right, Chris. Well, we will check in again in a couple of weeks as we get up on Combine. Hope to see you in Indianapolis and, of course, on to the owners' meetings in Phoenix in March. Always a great visit. Always a great week to spend Super Bowl with you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much, Nestor. Always appreciate it.
Chris Pike, a former PR director, or PR helper, website guy. I don't know what his official title was. He was with the Falcons. He was with the Saints. He's from Mount St. Joe. He's our WNST.net contributor, as well as the communications director of the Bahamas Bowl, as well as the Pro Football Writers Association. Do a little recap of all things Super Bowl 51. I'm headed down under for the next couple weeks. You'll get some sports, some rock and roll, some fun here on AM 1570, but you can find anything you miss anytime in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. The morning newspaper will still be shipping to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, breaking news will still happen on your WNST Tech service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Luke's going to be running around with the Terps. Ed's going to be running around with the Caps when they're not on bye week next week, and I will be back soon enough to get you to the Combine in Indianapolis. Meantime, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.